Right now, it's officially time to be. We're live on Facebook for the Tuesday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. I am your host, Pablo Gonzalez. Today, we don't have Greg Cohen. He is traveling for the holidays, but we got somebody that is clearly very popular because the chat's already blowing up. She is the JWB portfolio manager. She's a great hang. She loves making relationships. And at the end of the day, all investments can be made to look great on paper, and you know how to pick them. But in rental properties, the investment wins or loses based on the decisions you make after the property is bought. And that's what Ashley is here to shine a light on today. Ashley Hatten, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pablo. Thank you so much. No, we're going to have a great time spending some time with the community today.
I'm super pumped to have this conversation with you. Cause honestly, like I have never onboarded anybody that immediately took control of the onboarding call and was just like, nah, I'm here. I'm ready. Like, I'm good to go. Like you were so prepared. And I'm like, well, this is going to be interesting. And then everything that I believed about it got totally magnified when you showed up to the meetup. And I realized that you're like me. You like to hang. Like you love making friends with people. It's obvious to me, right? Like, I think this is going to be a super, super fun conversation.
I agree. No, I agree. We're going to have a blast.
I love it. All right. So let's get some stuff out of the way. Number one, we like to say that if you want to find out about owning rental properties in your portfolio, you're definitely in the right place today. If you want to find out about property management for rental property investors, you're definitely in the right place today. If you want to find out about getting an edge in the Jacksonville market and what it all means, you're in the right place. Probably not going to talk a lot about macroeconomy, but you're in the right place. Next place you got to go to get a personalized conversation is chatwithjwb.com. And the next place that we go is, you know what's coming, right? The roll call?
I do.
Roll call time. Let's go. Andrew Barnhill, good afternoon from Hotlanta. Good to have you. Joanna is in the house, our community manager. Joanna made it through the super cyclone in the Philippines. She's joining us today. It's great to have her back. Joanna, super, super pumped you're here. Who else we got? We got Anthony Dida. He's back. Hello, JWB family. Welcome, Ashley. I think he's one of your clients.
Hey, Anthony. No, I've met him before. Good to have you, bud.
There you go. Jen Filson, the fairy godmother of the Not Your Average Investor Show community.
My love.
Chris Gonzaga from the Hudson family, Hudson Valley, New York, giving everybody season's greetings. Welcome back, Chris. We got Nadeem Shah. Good morning. Good afternoon from JWB. He's calling in from Oregon, I think it is, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Denny Davis says, no way I would miss the Ashley show. We got Marilyn Cotterman from Homosassa, Florida.
Home of the manatees.
Yeah, I knew you were going to deliver there. Welcome back. She says, hey there, Ashley and NYIS family. We got Lee Bishop, the MVP of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. He says, Ashley, you're amongst friends here. And Pablo, hello. I like that. Hello. We got Ken Moline, the patriarch of the first family of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. I know you guys know each other well.
Oh, I love Ken, Carolyn, Karen. Hey, hi, hello, all of you.
Ken, Carolyn, and Karen, they're all in the house. We got Lydia Filson, the mother of the godmother of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. She says, hi, y'all. We got Bill Shields with his trademark, Buenas tardes, camas y caballeros. Good to have you. We got Raul Tirado. Raul, you're back, man. Good to see your name in here again. Welcome back. Who else we got? All right, we're doing roll call. Kim Vu. Hi, all. Kim here. Good to see you.
Hey, Kim's my client too.
There you go. Kim is a new name. Welcome to the show, Kim. I hope you stick around and hang out with us, right? Like Ashley's a good hook, but I'm telling you, this is going to be fun going forward. We got Hervé Francois in the house.
Good also you, my Hervé. Client, my main man, Hervé.
Karen checking in ourselves from the Moline clan. Good to have you, Karen. Good to see you typing in here. Anybody else? Am I missing anybody? And that's right. Nadeem is clarifying that he's from Washington. Gina is in the house. G-Star, who's our producer. Good to have you, Gina. And I think that's it. If I missed you, let me know in the chat. As you can tell, if this is your first time joining, this is an interactive show. We got a lively community here. We got a couple of special people that are checking in right now. We got John Henning. He says, hi, Ashley.
Hi, John. Yeah, he's my guy.
There you go. And we got Zach Correa. Zach, I always love seeing you in the house, man. Aloha to Zach.
Yes, mahalo, Zach.
All right. We got the first Q&A already in. Jen Filson asks, will Ashley mind if we crash her wedding?
Probably yes. You can come hang out on the rooftop. We're going to be going around afterwards. I will be honest, I don't have enough food for everyone, but yeah, come up afterwards. I'm going to wear my dress all night long. We're going out to the bars afterwards. I hope I can say that on the show, but yes, come see me if you're going to be in town.
I love it. Hard hitting truth, man. It'd be real easy for Ashley to be like, yeah, come over. Now mean it.
Don't
But
do that.
the
Don't do
reality, the
that.
realities of planning a wedding is not cheap, right? It's not easy.
True.
It's
It's
not
the
easy.
truth.
So that's why we're here, Ashley, to talk about wealth building and creating cash flow and
Yes.
doing all these great things so that people can pay for their daughters' weddings and people can
Yes.
do these wonderful things, right? So let's start off with when we were first onboarding, you were telling me about the difference between cash flow and income. I thought that was
Mhm.
really, really compelling. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're starting there because I feel like in a lot of people's minds, cash flow and income are really synonymous, right? Like your income does dictate to a certain extent what your cash flow will be. But I truly think that this is the most pronounced the first few months that you own a home with JWB. Naturally, you're purchasing a home, and unless you close on the first of the month, there's going to be some sort of prorated rent involved, right? Every time we place a resident or when you acquire a new home into your portfolio, there's a tenant placement fee involved with that. So that can cut into the cash flow pretty well immediately, especially if that first month is prorated. On top of that, if it's your very first investment with JWB, we have a $400 escrow that we keep on hand for smaller maintenance items. But those are all collected passively through that rental income so that you don't have to send us money, right? We'll collect rent from the residents and we'll apply that towards these debts, if you will, the tenant placement fee, that $400 escrow. So you are receiving income, if you will. However, you're not going to see that income hit your bank account until that tenant placement fee is paid and that escrow account is full to the $400 minimum. So with that, I think it's really insightful to bring up the difference between you're going to see the benefit of income, especially on your 1099s, right? Your W-9s that you're getting at the end of every year, your Schedule E. But you may not see that income hit your bank statement until maybe month 2, month 3 of your ownership of the property.
So as you're describing that, I'm hearing short term versus long term, right? Like cash flow is something that happens in moments. Income is this thing that you want to look in a holistic picture. And it echoes a lot of kind of just JWB core beliefs of this, like the long-term viability of a relationship is the income. The cash flow is just kind of like how many properties can I close or whatever, right? Like you're looking at it in a holistic way as of not just seeing a 30-day window, but kind of like a performance in the life of the investment and the 5 different profit centers. Is that kind of like where it's at?
It sure is. Yeah, you're exactly right. And what I always go back to is, where you're going to be for your tax write-offs. I think that's a really good way to kind of encapsulate what all has transpired over the course of the year, as opposed to exactly like you said, in a 30, 45, 60-day timeline, right? We account for things like maintenance and vacancy in the deal evaluations that you and Greg go over, every single week on the property of the week on Thursdays. And so we're accounting for things like that. And we can acknowledge, right, that tenant placement fee, 1 month's rent right when you close, that can be a big hit to the return. And that's why we exclusively focus on those 2 and 3 year length leases, so that you're only incurring that expense once every 2 or 3 years. I know Greg references a lot. Our average length of stay is actually over 4.5 years because our property management team is successful in renewing over 74% of the leases that come due on an annual basis. And so with that, we're also avoiding another tenant placement fee because we're not placing a new tenant. We're just renewing the residents that are already in the home.
That makes a lot of sense, right? So now as you're moving into this space, you're moving into kind of like something that I would love to talk about, which is, and we get this a lot on the show, right? Like, what's the difference between the property evaluation that people are seeing and how the investment actually performs, right? Like, what is the performance of the investment as a portfolio manager? What are your thoughts on that? Like, how does one experience between the property evaluation to kind of like the feeling of investing in this thing and the benefits?
Yeah, and so I think that what I love about working here is we're a very data-driven company, right? We have this return on investment tracking tool that the 4 owners of the company use on a monthly basis, and they are looking and seeing what percentage are we actually seeing for maintenance? What is our actual vacancy percentage, right? And those are the figures that they're including in the return on investment tracking tool. And this will give you, I think, a really honest insight into what you should expect as an investor. What I like about it is it's a really great opportunity for me as the person that's building and maintaining these relationships with clients is I get to kind of under promise and over deliver on what they even expect from their deal evaluation, right? If you're expecting 6% of your return of that year to go towards maintenance and we don't have much maintenance that pops up, well, now your returns are higher than what we expected. We expect a 3% vacancy. So when we can avoid that vacancy for 4.5 years, well, now your returns are buffered, right? And then when it does happen, because it will happen, I joke that in life, the guarantees are death and taxes. And in real estate, the guarantees are maintenance and vacancy. It will happen. And I think that we're really transparent about that in the deal evaluations. But when it does happen, your returns are pretty well in line with what we told you to expect when you made the buying decision. It may be a dip from where it has been performing because we've been over delivering, right? We've been keeping your expenses low, your income high. So when we do have vacancy, when we do have maintenance, we dip into line with where we told you to expect to be. And then the rest of the year, we kind of average it out to where a lot of the cases that I've seen, we're over delivering on where we told them to expect with those deal evaluations.
Got it. So as I hear you say that, I'm hearing the property evaluation sheets are what you know that you can deliver rolling out of bed, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like this is the guarantee, and then the value of having someone like you, right, a portfolio manager, and being partners with a company like JWB and doing business with JWB is this idea that there is somebody that's actively working on doing better than that sheet, as opposed to just like, here's your property, take it.
Exactly. Yeah. And when those bad times come, right, it's not if, it's when. You've got someone on your side. You've got someone on your team that's really quarterbacking the experience for you, if you will. So instead of just, hey, here's your property that you own and now your resident hasn't paid rent, we're saying, hey, your resident hasn't paid rent and this is an understandably tough time. Here are the steps that we are taking. You can expect a weekly update from me. This is, how this eviction is going. Maybe they enter a stipulation, maybe they pay off a balance, right? There's a lot of different nuances that can happen. But I do think that's where the value comes in is we can really make sure that actions are being taken so that when the going gets tough, right, we get going.
Love that. Love that. And there's something else. And I want to dive into Drew's question. This is kind of like an X's and O's question, but he asks, if our lease ends and the in-place tenant signs a new lease, is there a property turn charge?
So I want to validate the question. If the lease ends and the resident signs a lease in the same home, is that correct?
I would believe so. I think this is a lease renewal question. And Drew, let us know if you want to add something different.
So yeah, we'll answer it as if it's a renewal. And then if it's not, we'll take that route instead. But if it's a renewal, no, there would not be a property turn. And that's why we focus so much on renewing the residence, is because we're able to defer the maintenance and the expense that comes with a property turn, right? When your home is being turned, there is not a resident, so you're not making any money. You're spending a lot of money on maintenance, right? The average cost of a property turn right now is just a little north of $4,000. And then once the home is turned, there's a period where we're marketing the home on the client's behalf. So we're drawing in leads that are being underwritten, but that does organically come with a timeline as well, where there's no money coming in, right? But you have maintenance expenses like mowing the lawn, right? Cleaning the home, keeping the utilities on, all things that can really be entirely avoided by renewing a resident. And then to answer Andrew's question, there is not a tenant placement fee because we're not placing a new tenant. We're not turning the property. We're not underwriting and vetting out a new resident. We have the resident with a great track record, right? If they're in an eviction or they're not paying their rent, we will not renew them. So we know that they can uphold the obligation of the home. And then we avoid the vacancy, avoid the maintenance and the corresponding tenant placement fee that would come with a typical lease end.
Love it. So basically, you are incentivized, like your job is keep the tenant in there because it saves the investor money by not having a new renewal fee, but it also saves it by not having the turn fees, which is, rehabbing the property, like painting the walls, putting in new, new flooring or whatever, and also saves the opportunity cost of not having 2 weeks of rent or like a month of rent that's in there, right? So like that whole package is the secret sauce to long-term, what do we call it? We call it income versus cash flow, right?
There you go. Now, I do want to validate because when we renew a resident, there is a renewal fee that the client will see. But instead of being 1 month's rent, which in today's market is what, $1,175, $1,200, it's $200 per year of renewal. So instead of 1 month's rent being automatically gone, $200 if they renew for 1 year, 2 years, $400, so on and so forth, up to another 3-year lease term. So yeah, but otherwise you nailed it.
Love it. Love it. So, okay. So then there's a renewal fee instead of $1,100 or $900 or whatever, whatever rent was going to be, it's $200. So you save that money. You're also saving the tenant improvement money. You're also saving and then you're also not having the opportunity cost of lack of income coming in, right? So
you're still making money. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I think you hit something which I love about JWB, and I talk about it when we go through our property management agreement, but the company has really aligned itself to be on the client side of the table. So our management fees are directly tied to rental income. So if our clients aren't making money, neither are we, right? So if your home is vacant, we're not collecting any management fees. So it truly is in our best interest and the client's best interest to have residents in place that are going to stay long-term and then renew those residents as well.
Yeah. We talk about that. You're right. We do talk about that a lot on the show. You want to align your incentives with the people that you're doing business with long-term. So like you're incentivized by keeping the rent coming in, not tenant placement fees that other property management companies are.
We don't make our money on tenant placement fees.
Love it. Sounds like a good deal. So the other side of this equation is what Nadim is asking about, right? So like you're incentivized to keep the tenant in the home, to sign long-term leases, to reduce the turn kind of like costs and the opportunity cost of not having somebody in. And that's good income wise for everybody, right? Nadim is asking though, in this environment where rent is going up, right? So he asks, so are there rent increases included in long-term leases? What if rent increases more per year than what has been put in the lease? And I kind of short-circuited as I was framing it, but it's this idea that the fear of missing on a rent increase can sometimes drive people to think, no, what I want is a new tenant. And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, and that's a really fair question. So what we have as a company embraced it's a 3% rent increase that's written into every single lease that is signed, so that the client is not penalized by a 2 or 3 year length lease, because as I'm sure Nadim is seeing, rent rates, while not necessarily on par with home price appreciation, are still appreciating, right? Really, really strongly. So we have one strategy where we keep a 3% rent increase per year of the lease, right? So every year rent is increasing by 3%. And then when those residents are eligible to renew their lease, we pull a comparative market analysis. And so at that moment in time, we're saying if this home were to go vacant, go through a property turn and re-rent, what would that rent rate be? And we increase the rent to that rent rate at that renewal period. And if it's a 2-year renewal, they have another 3% increase the second year of that renewal. So it does sort of offset. Now, will it always be a 100% comparison? I'll admit it will not, but I think that's the benefit to the resident of signing that long-term lease and then signing a long-term renewal, right? It's towing a very fine line between keeping the cost as high as possible for the client, but also knowing that the time is money. And if a home goes vacant, you're not making that money. So 3% rent increase per year of the lease, and then a market rent rate increase anytime we renew the residence.
I love that. Like, I think that's a really nice, because as you're describing it, I'm hearing, right, there is the two sides of the money-making coin are potential fees that you can increase and potential costs that you can decrease. And you're talking about, number one, there is a very specific cost you can decrease. That's that turn fee, right? This idea that you're going to spend 4 G's every single time you got to turn a client,
Right.
Taking that off the table is huge. But then the other side is the potential increase in fees, which can be anywhere from 3% to 8% to 12% if it's going bananas. But if I think of that, that is, 8% of a $1,000 rent is $80. So $80 times 12 is $800, right? Like close to $900. And that does not make up for a $4,000 turn, right?
Right.
But you still want to capture the upside. So when you're bringing people in on the renewal, you're getting them back to equilibrium of where the rent should be. And you're also locking in a 3% increase until the next one, while ensuring that you don't suffer this $4,000 turn fee in the next 2 years or 3 years.
Yep. And that 3% compounds. So it's not like a 3% and we increase it from X to Y. And then the following year it's 3% from Y to Z. And then to your point, right, when we do talk about renewals, we are seeing a little over 12% of we're able to increase that rent on a monthly basis. So we've seen, $200, $300 per month as far as a rent increase. And we're able to retain those residents because with those market rent analysis, evaluations that we're doing, we'll send them to the resident and then we'll say, go shop around, right? Go look at where you are living and what homes are renting for today. It's exactly in line, right? But by renewing this lease, you don't have to pay another security deposit, last month's rent, the cost to move all of your stuff, right? It truly is a win-win, not only for the client who gets to capture the rent appreciation, but also for the resident who can see, hey, yeah, it can be a large increase. There's a little bit of sticker shock, but once they do that homework, it kind of becomes a no-brainer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Drew Barnhill is saying you give a decent deal to get long-term security and everybody wins in that case.
Yeah.
Then that's really well said.
Beautifully said.
We got a bunch of questions rolling in, but before we get into these questions, I would like to, we got a couple people checked in that since we started. Fatima Lopez checks in and says it's nice to put a face to the person that I've been. Yes. And then Hervé writes in, he thought that he was your only client. That's what he said.
The only one.
So in order we clearly have a bunch of JWB investors on this call. We probably have a couple folks that aren't. If you're not, if you're new here, I'd love for you to check in on the chat. Let us know you're new to the chat or you're new to the kind of the show. If you're investing or you're not investing, I would love to hear that. Before we dive into these questions, I would love to just talk about what this relationship looks like in general with you, right? Like I know that there is a post-close call and then there's a monthly client call. And I know this because I'm a client myself, but I would love for you to kind of just tell me a little bit about how the relationship starts and then how it's maintained. Talk to me about that post-close call.
Yeah, so post-close is really selfishly a great opportunity for us as a company to understand what went really, really well during the loan process, or if it's a cash transaction, did everything go smoothly, right? Is there anything that we can improve upon so that when this client and other clients are going through the process and working with the lenders that JWB is recommending and with the title company and the insurance contacts that we are recommending, we want to make sure that it's a great experience for everyone involved. And if it's not, well, let's get nitty gritty, right? What can we do to improve that for you so that the next time you're going through the loan process, it is a little bit smoother sailing. So that's for us, right? But then for the client, it's also a wonderful opportunity to get an in-depth look at that return on investment tracking tool that you and I were talking about a little bit earlier. This call is usually conducted with one of the more senior members of the service team, and we'll share screens with our clients. We have a demo. Matt is a longtime client who's been gracious enough to share his data with us and allow us to share that with other clients. And every single client has access to this spreadsheet as long as they purchase their home from us. But it's an accountability tool, right? And so I mentioned that the 4 owners use this on a monthly basis. Our clients have access to this. It's updated every 6 weeks. And then my team uses it as well to make sure that the client experience is staying top notch and kind of track what's happening if there is this huge blowout moment, right? What can we do to kind of just make sure that we're earning our stripes, right? That we are on your side of the table, that we're lessening that burden. So that is really the intention of the post-close call. It's a little bit of feedback from us, but it's also a lot of education for the client who now owns this property. And we're going to be tracking every single dollar in and out to make sure that what we told you to expect on that deal evaluation, we're able to uphold.
Yeah, that's one of the big things that helped me get my wife on board, right? Like the whole, I'm a big picture relationship guy, right? Like I'm not like a data tracker type, and my wife cares about data and like organization and whatnot, right? So like the idea that there is somebody that is giving us the full picture down to the nitty gritty and keeping track of like all the steps in between, I thought was a really, really valuable piece. And that sounds like the baseline for that is started in that post-close call, right? That's like let's all agree that we start here and then we start moving forward based on like real, the same place, right? Like you're starting the journey in the same part. So we're not just talking about 2 different journeys, right?
Exactly. Yep. And then again, it's updated every 6 weeks. So they can go in on a monthly-ish basis and really see, right, how much income, what are my expenses looking like? We track things like principal pay down for their mortgage. We use the closing disclosure from the McKillop law firm to put actual data in there so that these returns are very true to the actual experience. If the client purchases their home outside of the retirement account, we're looking at total tax savings, right? If they're using financing, we're looking at amortization schedules to see what the principal pay down looks like. So it truly is an all-encompassing reflection of how the asset is performing for the client. And this data is stacked year over year over year so that as the longevity of the investment grows, they're able to look back and see, oh, in 2019, we had a property turn. And so the returns did dip in that year, but the years before and the years since, we've been at or above par. And then how is that actually stacking up against the estimated return on investment where we track our annualized return on investment? So it's a year over year, and then it's also all of those years together, right? How have we been doing for you?
Love that. Love that. Very cool. Drew Barnhill's putting in the chat, just closed Friday on my new townhouse, and JWB had a tenant move in on a 36-month lease before I closed. Talk about over delivering. That's nice.
There it is.
I like that. And Zach's putting in, JWB gives us the security of knowing our properties are in capable hands that will keep things running smoothly, leaving us room to focus on what you want to. Agreed. Right. That's
and they're I love that.
Yeah, yeah, I love that too. I'm a little disappointed that Zach didn't come up with an acronym for that because he's really good at.
I know he's good at them. He's really good at them.
You've set a new standard of expectation. All right, so that's the post-close call, and you're talking about this ROI report. You also have a monthly client call that you review the ROI report. Is that all that happens on the monthly client call, or talk me through that?
No, and so the monthly client calls aren't always reviewing the return on investment tracking tool. A lot of the time it's checking in, right? Giving the client insight into any rent collection issues that may be coming up before they see them on the statement, right? Or if there are expenses, that $400 escrow account that we were alluding to earlier gives us the autonomy to move forward on any expenses under that $400 threshold. And this keeps the investment truly passive for our passive income clients, right? I know that Hervé's got a job, so I don't need to call him on a Tuesday if a toilet flapper goes out. I'm just going to get that fixed for him. But professional courtesy, right? Hey, we have this expense. It is going to offset the income that you'll see on this month's statement. And so that's really the intention. Now, if I don't have any expenses and all of my rent has been collected, well, now I'm just building that relationship, right? What do you have planned for the holidays? What's your family, doing coming in town? Things like that. So it really is like just a touch point, a dedicated point in time that we proactively reach out to our clients, knowing that if they need us at any point in time, we're always available to them at their discretion as well.
Yeah, that relationship building aspect was in like full display for me when I saw you hanging out with Ken and Carolyn. Like you guys were just like chopping the fat and chewing the fat, as they say at Casa Marina, and it was like you guys were old friends. Like I thought that was really, really cool. That's when I was like, oh my God, Ashley's a beast, right? Ashley's really good at this. That's cool. Also, Hervé says appreciate the non-toilet calls.
I got you and your toilets, bud.
I got your toilets right here. So cool, man. So it sounds like those monthly calls, kind of what I'm experiencing too, right? It's just a touch point of just like, hey, have you checked your ROI report? That's always available to you. By the way, XYZ, right? I recently had a couple of residents that were running behind on their rent. They had to get some assistance. They ended up making me completely whole, plus fines and all this other stuff, which was really cool. But it's when something is wrong, you're having somebody to talk to. When everything is cool, you have someone to talk to.
That's the idea, right? And talking to that when everything is cool, right? It's that building the relationship. You get to know people obviously on a very personal level. And that is not only super satisfying to me as an individual, but also it makes my job a lot easier when we are filing evictions and when we do something that comes up that they know that I've got their back like a brick wall and we're going to get through it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And we kind of mentioned that before we got started, is this idea that JWB is never promising that nothing's going to go wrong because stuff goes wrong in rental properties. You're dealing with human beings. What they're promising is that you got somebody on your, whether it's good or bad, you got somebody that is looking out for you in this investment class, right? Like that you have.
Right. Exactly. Yep. You got somebody on your team.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. You got Ashley on your team, which is clearly valuable. All right. So let's dive into some of this Q&A. And if we got time when we get out of this Q&A, maybe we can go over that ROI report. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.
Let's do it. All right. Denny Davis asks, Ashley, what is the current number of homes for rent by JWB? Can you put this number in historical context? P.S. Thanks for renewing my tenant today. Great news. You're the best.
Hey, Denny. Yeah, so currently, and I can give you some real data, so bear with me for just a moment. But right now, I will say that we're heading into our most volatile time of year as far as leasing is concerned. So historically, right, Q1 is when we're going to see the most deposits come in, the most move-ins, which I understand is not necessarily intuitive for a lot of clients because on your side of the table, right, we're buying homes and usually we're moving into them ourselves. And so that's happening in the summertime when school is out and everything else. But the rental space is a little bit different in that Q1 sees tax return season. And so now these prospective residents have the liquid funds available to place as a security deposit, right? The the fees that come into moving into a home and getting underwritten and things of that nature. So currently, as of today, we have 72 homes that are available for rent of the 4,500 plus that we manage.
72 homes of 4,500 plus. That is quick math, a very small percentage. All right, cool.
Very little, 0.016.
0.016. That sounds like a good occupancy rate to me. Cool. So you kind of mentioned this idea that, so right now, when you say it's the most volatile time because they're getting tax returns, does this mean that right now it's artificially elevated, or do you think it could be artificially lowered? What do you mean by that?
So that's a really fair follow-up question. I do see right now the holidays, right? People are not moving quite as much, right? So we're getting gifts, we're having families, and we're not looking to relocate, right? And so I think that, and this time of year, just transparently, it can be a little bit inflated. And then we have a ton of inventory available going into Q1, so that when all these residents are in a position to make that move, that we've got the inventory available that they are now looking to move into.
Got it. All right, cool. That makes sense. I got to hit you with the tough ones too, Ashley. You know?
Yeah, for sure. It's,
Yeah.
it's the hot seat.
I know you appreciate it. All right. Nadeem Shah's got a question. Yeah. Is the AC unit serviced once a year or 2 times a year, and who pays for that?
So ACs are serviced really on an as needed basis. We are reaching out to clients monthly just to say, hey, make sure you're changing your filter, right? Pour vinegar down the drain line so that we don't have buildup and things of that nature. Now, if there is something where a AC is not blowing cool air in the summer, heat in the winter, we do troubleshoot with the residents, right? So first question, is your thermostat set to the correct setting, right? You'd be amazed at how many times that solves the problem right there. If that's not the issue, we're asking them to go get a shop vac and clear the drain line, right? Things of that nature that can really automatically sort of service the unit while mitigating the cost to the client. Now, if that isn't working, if it truly is something like a blower motor or a compressor, we will deploy a vendor. So it's a little bit of a multitude of answers, in that they're getting attention at least once a month. And then from there, on an as needed basis, as a client, you should only be seeing these expenses really when something needs to actually be replaced. If it's something like cleaning a drain line or something that can be directly tied to the residents not changing those air filters, you will see the expense as the homeowner, but the residents will be reimbursing this expense through, we call it a resident expense recovery. And it's how we really hold those residents accountable to, well, you should be managing the system on your own. And so if it's something that you could have fixed or that you caused, you're going to be financially responsible for that. If it's a compressor, a blower motor, something that is truly in the system, that would be a client's expense.
Interesting. That's the first time I heard that term, because very naturally, Denny Davis writes in the chat, got to be honest, residents are horrible at changing AC filters and taking care of those units.
They
right?
can be, yeah.
So what'd you call it? A resident expense? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's a resident expense recovery, and it is in the name, right? So it is essentially our way of saying, resident, you have either caused this, or if we ask, is your thermostat on the right setting, and you say yes, and then we get a vendor out there and all they have to do is change the setting on the thermostat, they are then financially responsible for the trip charge that got the vendor out there. Same thing if a clean in place or a pull and clean. I know these are kind of arbitrary terms, but if a resident, to Denny's point, if they're not changing their filter, everything that should be getting stuck in that filter is now going into the coils, right? Those evaporator coils, and they get really gross. So if the coils need to be cleaned or like pulled out and cleaned because they're that gunky, that is directly tied to the resident not changing their air filter. If you're changing your filter every single month, we will never need to clean the coils, right? And so when either of those things happen, we can say, per your lease and per our troubleshooting, these are very much things that you could have either avoided or overcome yourselves. And so you will be financially responsible for the cost that this client has incurred due to your lack of a better term, negligence, right? And so the client does see the expense because we use the $400 escrow to pay our vendors on a weekly basis. That's why they subscribe to our fixed line item pricing. So the clients see the expense, but then the very next month when the residents pay their rent, they're paying in excess so that they are reimbursing the client for the expense that the client has incurred due to the resident's failure to act, in essence.
Just when I think that I knew everything about all the things that JWB does, that's genius. You go and say something like this and totally redeem yourself, right? Like that's awesome, man. Like I had no idea that. That's brilliant. I can't believe that's never come up on the show. This idea that you're able to quantify user error versus just regular maintenance expense as a property management company. I think that's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. Oh, there you go. Brought it up. Resident expense recovery. That's going to be a piece of micro content for sure.
There you go.
Done. Send it. All right. So Zach's got a question. Aloha, Ashley. When we invest in premium property management like JWB as owners, we need to know that our managers are taking care of our residents. Our experience with you is you offer attentive, quality services that ensure residents feel well cared for, listened to, and comfortable while they rent. We know the longer our residents stay, it benefits us. What do you do to help increase resident satisfaction and retention? Mahalo, Z.
Hey, Zach. Hey, Beth. I hope she's on the call too. So that's a really fair question. And just like our portfolio managers are reaching out to the clients on a monthly basis, we're building and nurturing that relationship. Our property managers are also reaching out to the residents on a monthly basis. If there's any sort of an issue with rent, right, it's being a resource, being an asset to that resident so that they are not being filed on with an eviction, right? They have a lot of different capabilities in their back pocket as far as rental assistance programs, right? Pablo, you said that you had a really recent experience with that yourself, and that probably came from the resident reaching out or the property manager reaching out and saying, hey, resident, I see that you have a balance on your ledger. What's going on, right? Talk me through it. You know, if someone has been in an accident, that they were in the hospital and now they have medical bills, hey, there's rental assistance agencies that can help bridge that gap, right? They really make it known that I do not want to file an eviction on you, right? The only time ideally we're filing an eviction is if there is no communication, right? If the residents are completely off the grid and as the property managers are reaching out, they're just not really saying anything, right? That's not leaving much of a choice. And our job is to protect the investment. But on the flip side, if the resident's saying, you know, I lost my job, my mom has just passed, and I have all of these funeral expenses, there are a lot of different agencies in town that will help with rental assistance so that a resident doesn't lose their home if they are in a period of more advanced, you know, expenses on their side than what they would typically see. So I think that plays a really big role in it. If all the rent is in, they're reaching out just to say happy holidays, right? And Thanksgiving, we will deliver turkeys to our residents. And I think that really helps build that relationship. Just a couple of weeks ago, the entire office shut down all afternoon. And we were broken into teams of 3 or 4. We were given $500 from the company and one family, and we were given that family's wish list. So my family had one resident with 4 children. So we got all of the kids matching pajamas and board games, and the older boys wanted gift cards for the PlayStation Network, and the little girl wanted LOL dolls, and the toddler really loves trucks and dinosaurs. And so we were able to, I don't want to say give them a Christmas, but really help make a season very magical for them. And what other property management company is going to come deliver a turkey and give your children Christmas, right? Like it's so much more than just you live in a home that we manage. It's a relationship for every single person on this team that's involved with clients and residents alike.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Like to me as, right, you and I are relationship people, and like everything, having a great relationship with people solves everything, right? So like the focus on having a great relationship with your investors, the focus on having a great relationship with your residents, this idea that, you surprise and delight at certain points on both sides of the equation, right? Like I've gotten my little gifts here and there. residents get their, giveaways and Christmas, buying. That's really, really cool to humanize the experience, to have the team go out and buy holiday gifts, right? Like, and give somebody a budget for it. I think that's really, really awesome. And you said it yourself, right? Like, I had this experience. I had this residents that and experience some hardship. To be honest, I never knew what the hardship was, right? I'm not communicating with him. It's the property management team that's communicating with him. But at a certain point, they started falling behind. It was during the time where there was the moratorium, and I couldn't help but notice that they didn't file a COVID moratorium issue thing, whatever that's called, right? Like, that never happened. At one point they did. I guess they were in enough trouble and enough pain that happened. And then all I know is that they were made whole by some kind of like Christian Charities assistance program, that now that you're describing this idea that you proactively show them the door of where to find the funds that do this, it makes perfect sense that my, property manager was helping them qualify for some kind of assistance. And that's why we never moved forward with any kind of eviction, even though they hadn't filed for that. I think it's amazing. Like, right. Just all the way around. Very complete. So Daniel has a question here. Daniel Lee, welcome to the show, Daniel. For JWB neighborhoods, do you see it more difficult placing tenants during the months of December through February? Do you have any ballpark estimates on number of applications for a new property during the season versus summer months? And does JWB adjust rent based on seasonal demand?
Those are three really good questions. Now, I think a couple of them can be answered based on those market rent analysis, right? And so the idea there is that if the home is in a B minus C plus neighborhood, right? We're not charging the same rent amount that we would out at the beaches, right? Where it's super desirable. You can charge a really high rent amount because everybody and their brother wants to live there. There's also a different qualification that comes in there. So I think seeing what the actual neighborhood is performing at has been really, really strong in sort of getting residents and applicants in the door. And that could play a larger role in when they ask, how long a home will sit on the market, if there's more things going on in certain times of year. I do think that tax return season plays a large role in that, but I also think a lot of it has to do with if you're getting into a higher rent bracket, right? Our average is between, $900 and $1,200, depending on the neighborhood. We do have some that will rent for $2,300 a month. Now, that's obviously going to be significantly fewer applicants that are interested in viewing that home because I'll be honest, I couldn't afford that, right? That's more than I pay for my mortgage on a monthly basis, more than double what I pay for my mortgage on a monthly basis. But some people they are not looking to purchase real estate, right? I know a lot of people that grew up in that more millennial generation. It's a joke that they're nomads, right? They want to be able to move every couple of years. They don't want to be tied down to one piece of property. So I think there's a lot of different things that go into setting the rent amount and then how long a home sits on the market, just because there are so many different factors outside of the time of year and naturally, of course, then the income or liquid assets that a resident would have above and beyond what they would normally have 11 months out of the year.
Okay. So little bit of seasonal variation. Doesn't sound like there's any kind of discounts, but there is different kind of like varying timelines and demands and whatnot, right? Like regular economics, right?
Yeah. Now, if there is any sort of a discount, it would be in an extreme situation, right? Part of what we do as a company is we try to push rent rates, right? Again, going back to Nadim's question earlier about, how do we capitalize on the most rent on a monthly basis? So we try to push that because if we rent a home at $1,600, well, next time we go to pull a comparative market rent analysis, that's used. That's part of a comparable because it did successfully rent. But again, we're towing that fine line between money and time is money. So if a home is sitting on the market, we may drop the rent $25 just to get into a different bracket of applicant that would be interested in viewing that home, right? Maybe now more people are able to afford that rent rate. And so now that drives in more leads. Statistically, more leads coming in, the more applications are going to be submitted, and someone will pass our underwriting criteria. So it is a little bit of that. Now, if a home is sitting for 45, 60 days plus, our leasing team does have sort of incentives in place for prospective residents that would not necessarily impact our clients. So they may not know about these, but one that comes to mind is waiving the application fee. As the homeowner, you do not receive the application fee, right? JWB does, because we incur the fee to underwrite the residence, things of that nature. So by waiving that application fee, JWB is honestly, we're losing money so that we can then fill the home more quickly for the client. Going back to, if your home is vacant, if you're not making money, neither are we. And we don't make money on our tenant placement fees or transparently on our application fees. So if we need to waive that to fill an occupancy or to fill a home, we'll do that knowing that it's hitting our budget, not negatively impacting the client.
That's awesome. Very cool. Very great explanation. Denny Davis wrote here in the chat something I got to read out. He says, Pablo, a quick thought as Ashley was talking about rental expense recovery. Some folks on these calls regret not investing in JWB earlier, including you. That's me. I agree.
That's you.
Yeah. I will say that JWB property management is at an all-time high. Fantastic tenant vetting, successful RER. That's resident. What are we talking
Expense recovery. Yeah.
Resident expense recovery, reduction in property management fees for 5 out of 10 properties rental portfolio. 5 and 10 properties in the rental portfolios, extreme reduction in contracted repair fees due to economies of scale, comprehensive feedbacks on all aspects of returns. All of these have been developed over time and have not always been around, making this a great time in JWB history to be enjoying their property management services. All right, to argue against that, Denny.
Yeah. That's a really strong, and I appreciate that. As Denny's portfolio manager, that means the world to me that he's been around the block, right? Denny was one of our earliest investors. And so he has really seen the way the company has sort of evolved over time. And that's the idea, right? As I say it, that we are on the client side of the table. We track return data every single month. And so if we see that something is not working, we will fail forward, right? We'll say, hey, that's not it. So let's try this instead. And through that trial and error, I agree. I think we've gotten to a really, really solid place.
Love it. Long-term relationship. I love it. All right. Ashley, it's 1:24. I want to get you out of here at 1:30. I know you got a bunch of other people that you make feel like you're their only client, right? We got 5 questions. You want to rapid fire this?
Let's do it.
Let's go. All right. Chris Gonzaga asks, have you noticed greater improvement fees with evictions versus tenants that just move on?
Greater improvement fees in what regard, I wonder?
I'm not sure. Chris, can you clarify that one and we'll move on to the next one for the time being?
We'll go to number 2 and we'll come back to number 1.
Let's do it. All right. Roger Evans asks, can you give us an example of the breakdown of property turn item costs, which you indicated was just under $4,000? Let's say the resident left after 2 years of the home being constructed. So what are the breakdown costs of like somebody leaving that adds up to $4,000?
Yeah, no, and so that's a really good question. And a lot of it, I think when we go through a property turn, it's smaller items that really do add up. I hate to say nickel and dime. The biggest things are going to be paint. If we need to paint your home, I mean, it's a price per square foot. And so that very quickly adds up. If we need to replace aerators in the toilet, if there are, toilet paper holders that have come off the wall, $15 to slap that back on there, right? It's things like that that really, really quickly add up. We also do things every single property turn, regardless of how long a resident has lived in the home. And this includes pest control, right? We require the residents provide a receipt for pest control. If they do, we don't charge it because we know it's been done. But we always do pest control. We always clean the entirety of the home. We'll do things like polish the vinyl plank flooring. We will do landscaping, touch up the mulch so that we have that curb appeal, right? I say we want to put the home's best foot forward. So it's things like that that can very, very quickly add up, even though the cost is marginal, to be over a $4,000, And that's the average cost. So there is less, right? Denny has had significantly higher than that. So it truly is a spread, but the average cost right now is right at that $400 mark.
Got it. $4,000 mark, right?
4,000. Yes, please. Thank you.
And maybe not nickel and dime, but a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? Like
a little bit of this, a little bit of that,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, got it. All right, cool. Mike Foster's got a question. Somewhere down the road, or probably way down the road, clients will want to sell one or more of their JWB properties. Does your team provide any assistance with that process?
We sure do. Yeah. So we've got a couple of really great references and resources here in the Jacksonville area that our clients, to his point, this is a long-term buy and hold, but the idea is it's an investment, right? And so you get the cash on cash, you get the income, but then you will sell the home and take advantage of all of the appreciation that you've gotten as you've held onto the product long-term. So as our clients have sort of hit that mark where they're ready to liquidate the asset and step into retirement, plan their daughter's wedding, pay for their children's college, whatever the why behind the investment was, yes, we do have agents here in town that we can refer our clients to, and they specialize in working with clients who are out of state, overseas, so that it can be a very seamless process for the client.
All right. Lee Bishop has a question. Ashley, how did you and the portfolio management team handle the new septic rollover to tenant paying that cost? Can you talk about when that went into effect for the tenants that purchase homes with septic and then increase the rent?
Yeah, and so that is something that we really took into account beginning this year. So in 2021, our septic vendor, we had a really great collaboration with them. And the idea is as a home is built, so right now this is only on brand new construction homes, the septic vendor will go out and basically say, yes, this is in perfect working order. The idea being that every month there is a fee that is paid almost like a home, help me out, Pablo, like a home warranty. Yes, let's call it a warranty, if we will. So
I'm glad I could help.
Thank you so much. Yes. We're paying on a monthly basis for this warranty, and that any time this septic system needs attention, it's covered under this warranty. The caveat there being if it is caused by resident neglect, say they're parking on the drain field or they're parking on the septic system itself, the septic system will start to fail. It will collapse. If the resident is using too much water, they will flood out the drain field and the drain field will need to be replaced. Those items would not be covered under this septic warranty. But going back to that resident expense recovery, that's where we're holding the residents accountable for their actions and for undue stress on the system, if you will. So the idea is it is passively collected from the rental income. So the clients will see this on their statement as like a monthly expense. This can be used as a tax write-off, right? It will appear as an expense on that 1099 Schedule E, so you'll get the benefit of that, but you're not actually paying for it. We have over-rented the homes in these areas by $45 or so, whatever the monthly fee is, and the residents subscribe to this because they know that their septic system is going to be in great working order all of the time, right? They know that they are paying a little bit more so that they are covered further on down the line. So the home is over rented just a bit compared to what the market would be for that area. The client does see the expense, but it doesn't necessarily impact their returns because we're still in line with sort of what we told them to expect as far as what they should see as monthly rental income. That's not being impacted there. It's really a straight pass through from the resident to the septic company.
All right. Great explanation of a very complex issue. Well done. Hervé, we got last two questions here, right? Because Chris clarified. We'll save his for last. Hervé asks, Ashley, how long is it now taking to lease a home to a tenant, i.e. from completion of improvement or construction to move in?
That really depends. So right now I'm seeing I have John Hennig is on here, right? His home on Dillon Street. I think it took a week, maybe two, to get a resident in there once we completed construction. One of my others, Hervé, I think it would, no, it was, yeah, Hervé, is your home on Calhoun that you're about to close on, that we had it on the market for just a couple of weeks, maybe 3 or 4, and now we have a resident in place there as well. And there are some homes that will sit a little bit longer, and this again goes into our ideas of maybe we're waiving that application fee, things of that nature. I think that does have to do with how much competition, right? Quote unquote competition, how many available homes are in that area. If it's saturated with availability, it may take a little bit longer, right? Because supply and demand, but if your home is one of 2, it probably won't sit quite as long. New construction homes, I will say, go a little bit quicker just because it's shiny and new and everybody wants shiny and new. So they're a little bit more expensive on a rental basis, but I think that cancels out with, just the want, right? That emotional, I'll be the first one to live here. Everything's brand new. So it really, there's a lot of different things that would go into that.
Makes sense. So there's a bit of a spread. Drew Barnhill saying that his took a week and a half, right? Like it sounds like this, it's a fast velocity. At the end of the day, what you need to know is that JWB is pulling all the levers possible to get it done as quickly as possible, right?
Again, if you're not making money, neither are we.
There you go. All right. So Chris's question means, have you noticed greater improvement in fees coming from damage from eviction to tenants versus just moving away, right? Like do evicted tenants damage the property more, or is it kind of even?
No, so I really think that goes back to the relationship that we're building, right? Is we're not evicting the resident and say, you have to leave, right? Because I think we know that if we make a resident mad, they are more likely to damage a home out of spite, right? And we never want that. So we have spent all of this time building, maintaining, really cultivating that relationship with the resident so that if, God forbid, we do have to file an eviction on them, we're still every single week, those property managers are reaching out. Hey, have you tried this assistance agency? Hey, can you shed a little bit of light on what's happening in your life so that I don't have to get you out of this home? We really try to make it feel like while it is a rental, it's their home. They have that pride because they're going to be living there for the next 4.5 years on average. So even in the event that we do have to evict a resident, I do not see a lot of malicious just going in and tearing things up. I mean, I'll be honest, you do sometimes just have mean-spirited people, but that truly is very few and far between.
All right, Ashley Hatten, full on peek behind the curtain of JWB Property Management, wide open Ask Me Anything session. You killed it, buddy. Before I let you go, I'm just going to say, if you came to find out about owning rental properties in your portfolio, if you came to find out about best in class, property management for rental properties, man, this call has totally delivered. If you came to find out about market trends inside of Jacksonville, a little bit less, but we're going to be talking a lot about that in a week with Alex Zafakis when we go into JWB Rental Property Investor Secrets with Alex Zafakis. He's going to be talking about the Fed. He's going to be talking about the stuff downtown. He's going to be talking about all the stuff that nobody knows except for Alex Zafakis and his 1 million secrets that he holds in his vault, giving you a great take on that. If you want a personalized conversation, like we just had somebody in the Q&A ask, does JWB buy vacant lots? Yes, JWB buys vacant lots. If you have something to talk to JWB about your particular scenario, go to Chat with JWB, schedule a call, talk to somebody that is almost as awesome as Ashley is. I'm sure in the ballpark at least, right? Or Brandon. We've had him on the show as well. Ashley, man, talk about showing up and delivering. Like I knew that we were in for something, but you delivered something I've never heard before. You were knowledgeable on every single question. Your ability to speak and make concepts clear in this impromptu scenario, I can tell you, is not easy. And you the amount of love coming from you in this chat of everybody just talking about how great you are and the people that showed up just to see your face because they get to hang out with you. You are a star, man. This was really fun. You made this easy. You killed it. And I appreciate you doing this.
You made it easy for me. Even though I had clients reaching out saying, hey, best of luck. I'm going to be there for you. I'll be watching. I was a little nervous, right? I know there's a large scope of people that tune in that are in the JWB family and maybe that haven't taken that leap yet. So I am just flattered that I was able to shed some light on something that you had never heard of, right? That resident expense recovery.
Not easy.
A success any day of the week, but you made this very easy. You made it really, really seamless for me. And I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you.
You're the best. I appreciate that. So we're not having a show on Thursday because it is right in Christmas time. So I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, Merry Christmas. We're going to see you again Tuesday. We got the Tasmanian Devil of Northeast Florida rental property investing, Alex Safakis. Right.
Wear your party pants. He's going to be a good time.
Number one, Alex always has some, like he's the ultimate insider, right? So he always has something that you've never heard before that you're not going to get access to. Number two, I love the buddy comedy that happens between Greg and Alex, right? Like they're like best friends since college. They live together.
Yeah.
Alex had to talk him into quitting his job and starting this company. The buddy comedy is real, and I love being a part of that thing. So it's always a really good time. Hope to see you guys on Tuesday on the show and hang out with us inside the Facebook group. Go to jwbfacebookgroup.com. Join us in there. Over 3,000 other great hangs like Ashley and the rest of our investors in here. Until then, Ashley, I'll let you say bye to everybody and happy holidays. This has been awesome. Thank you.
It really has. And thanks everybody for coming out, even if you usually aren't part of the show. It means the world to me just to have the interaction. So very Merry Christmas to every single one of you. Happy New Year. Be very safe, stay warm. And if you need anything, just give me a shout.
You know who to call. See ya.
You know, I'm your girl.